this video, we're gonna talk about the 7 Artisan 50mm f0.95 lens for Fujifilm. If you like the content, make sure you subscribe and leave a thumbs up. This video will provide technical information. It will also provide my personal impressions. I will also provide you with photos of a test chart. I will show you real-life photos taken with this lens, and we will also discuss whether you should get this one or its closest competitor, which is, in my opinion, the Fuji XF 56 1.2. Now, before we get started, there is something that I want to clarify. I got this lens for free. And as always in my reviews, you get my personal and honest opinion. Let's talk about some technical details and facts. Now, the lens has a maximum aperture of 0.95, which is an amazing number and it sounds so beautiful. 0.95. And it goes all the way to f16. The lens is currently priced at around 260 euros and it weighs 416 grams, which is not too heavy, not too light, and it balances pretty nice on my Fuji X-H1 and X-T3. The lens has a 62mm filter thread, a close focus distance of 45 centimeters, and it has 13 blade elements which help to shape a really round aperture. The 7 Artisan 50mm f0.95 lens is a completely manual lens, which means that you control the aperture with this clickless ring, and you also control focus directly on the lens. You don't get any autofocus, so you have to be really conscious and precise when focusing. Let's talk about build quality. This lens is built very well. It feels very good in your hands. All the controls run very smoothly. I don't see any issues regarding build quality, and actually I have expected much worse. The most important thing when talking about a lens is probably image quality. Now, to be honest, the image quality is a lot better than I expected. But that being said, the lens has a lot of problems and weaknesses. So let's discuss what I found out, and after that I will show you images of a test chart and some real-life photos. The lens is pretty sharp, but only in the image center. The corners are actually pretty blurry, especially when shooting wide open. Let's talk about vignetting, because I was actually pretty impressed about the vignetting of this lens, because I didn't see any vignetting at all. I mean, it would certainly be measurable, but it was not visible to me. So great job regarding vignetting. That being said, the lens does show quite some distortions. In real life photos, it's not really visible, but if you shoot architecture or straight lines, especially straight lines along the image borders, you will see that, and it can be quite a problem, and it can be quite annoying to straighten these lines in post. Now, of course, I have been expecting chromatic aberrations, and I was pretty surprised to find out that they were pretty minimal. So great job in that regard. Another thing that I really noticed was flares and ghosting. especially if the sun or a bright light source is in your frame. But even if that light source is outside of the frame, you still see that light affecting your image, which can be used as a creative tool, but in general, it's not something that we want from a lens. Let's have a look at the test chart. And we're gonna start with the widest aperture at f0.95. The first thing that is noticeable is the distortion. As you can see at the lines, especially on top and on the bottom of the image, the lines are not straight. Let's have a look at image quality and sharpness in the center. Now, the center image quality is actually pretty good, even wide open. I'm pretty impressed. You should also keep in mind that we are at 400% magnification. There is very little chromatic aberration. I mean, it's visible, but it's not really bad. Now let's have a look at the image corners. Now keep in mind that what I'm showing you is a print, and this print is just as sharp in the corners as it is in the center. Now this cannot be said for the image. The image quality has decreased quite drastically if we look at the corners. And the worst place is down here. You cannot even read the font properly. So this is not what I had in mind. Anyway, Let's have a look at an image taken at f1.4. You can see it's pretty much the same. f2, also pretty much the same. f2.8, f4, f8, and now we start to see something like sharpness. But we can also see that chromatic aberration starts to appear in the corners. And with these two images you can compare the widest aperture at f0.95 to f16. Now the image sharpness has increased a lot in the corners, but the problem is that f16 is not what you want from this lens. You want to use it wide open. It's time for an unfair comparison. I want to compare lenses that seem to be related but actually aren't. The Fuji XF 56 f1.2 and the 7 Artisan 50mm f0.95. Now these lenses sound pretty similar. The focal length is similar. The aperture is similar, but the lenses are completely different. You can see that when you look at the price. You can also see that when you look at image quality. You can also see that when you look at the way they work, autofocus and manual focus. But there's one more thing that you should really consider. All of the original Fuji XF lenses include the lens profile in the RAW files, which means that their flaws get corrected automatically. And that is something that this lens cannot do. And that's pretty important in everyday use. So keep that in mind, and I hope these considerations help you when deciding which lens you should get. It's time for a conclusion. And for me, this is the most difficult and the most important part of this video. And that's why I got some notes. I think this lens is for people that like to shoot manual. It's for people that like to focus manually. Because manual focus takes a lot of time, it's a lot of effort, it takes patience, and it's not for everybody. I can also recommend the lens for people looking for a cheap lens with a very wide aperture. I can also recommend the lens to anybody who liked my sample images, because they pretty much represent what you can get. But it's also important to keep in mind that every single picture that I showed you has been edited. I have touched contrast, I have increased clarity, I've played with the colors, and so many things have been changed. So it's not just a representation of what the lens can do, but it's also a representation of my style of editing. But one of the most important points that I want to make in this video is that I cannot recommend this lens if you're looking for the best image quality out there. Because the lens, as you saw, especially in the pictures of the test chart, they are good in the center, and as soon as you get off center, image quality decreases quite a lot. For everyday images, it's not that visible as it is in the test chart, but it's a fact, and if you are looking for the best image quality out there, this is not the best choice for you. This is especially true if you like to place your subject off center. I can also not recommend this lens if you like to shoot moving subjects. Maybe some of you haven't ever shot with a manual focusing lens, and trust me, it's way more difficult than autofocus. Shooting moving subjects with autofocus is already difficult and tricky sometimes, but doing it with a manual focusing lens becomes almost impossible, and it's something that I would not recommend. With that being said, good photography is not based on technical stuff. Good photography is not defined by the best image quality out there. Good photography is not based on megapixels or frames per second. Good photography needs great light, it needs opportunities, it needs a great perspective. There are so many skills that you need to master to be a good photographer. And it's not that technical stuff doesn't matter. Of course it does matter, and you should always strive for the best image quality. But there are so many opportunities out there. And what I basically want to say is that if you cannot take great photos with this lens, then you won't take great photos with any other lens. So learn photography, try to become the best photographer that you can, try to get everything out of every subject that you shoot, and don't blame it on the lens. The lens is just a tool, just like your camera, just like a battery, just like a tripod or your image processing software. It doesn't matter. These are just tools. What matters is you and your vision and your willingness to take great photos. So if your budget is only sufficient for this lens, go ahead and get it. Take great photos. If your budget is higher and you can afford a better lens, well, go ahead and get that better lens. But don't look for excuses. Go ahead, take more photos, and stay creative. Thanks for watching. Leave a thumbs up if you have any questions about this lens. Drop a comment, and see you soon.
you.